31, so we're going to get everybody. And welcome. And it looks like we are online. I'm not sure we have any online visitors. So the meeting is being convened at 5:31. I think it's now a raw rule. You have to put the actual time that we convene and that we adjourn, and we all our things passed. The first order of business is a public hearing. So I will open a public hearing on the acceptance of a donation from the Barrington Public Library Foundation. And as you know, this is for the purchase of furniture in the adult area. The dollar amount, Lydia, do you have that or actually?
Yes, I do. $10,293.19.
And so I would open the hearing for comment. And I'm going to call on Roger. Roger Gingrich, the president of the foundation, is here. Anything you'd like to say, Roger, about this?
It was just a pleasure doing it. Always a pleasure to be visiting the library. And fortunately, we had some outstanding grants that came in, one of which comes from the Gaming Commission. Okay, from the fabulous find.
Oh, that's right.
In Kittery. If you haven't been to that, it's a fun little visit. They are clearly an uptick amongst them. Yes, it appears in terms of what they get. And we have the third part of the grant that came from First Seacoast Bank. It's coming due in January. So we're not flush, but we've had easy
You had
time.
money to spare to be able to.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other comment on this? Otherwise, I will close the public hearing and accept a motion to accept the donation from the Library Foundation of $10,293.19. Is there such a motion?
Make a motion to accept the donation of $10,293.19 from the foundation.
And Robert seconded. And by the way, Robert, we are short two members tonight. So I'm going to say Robert and Karen will both be voting. So Carolina and Robert seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Now, public comment. Is there any public comment? I don't see anybody on the screen. Is there anyone here who wants to make a comment as a public member as opposed to a trustee? Or a guest?
Could I just share that we're contemplating in the foundation creating a public portal for promoting the idea of a long-term endowment for the library. And that would be probably contingent on getting bequests from patrons and so forth who found the library particularly helpful over the years. And at this point, we actually have 2 pending requests.
Wow.
So the idea would be to create that endowment entirely in collaboration with the trustees and library staff to decide how to use and when to use that. Our goals are lofty, but
Yeah. That's good, long term. Roger, you're going to stay for the whole meeting?
sure.
We have a foundation report later, and I'd like to be able to ask you to also report on the progress of the donor wall, but we'll wait until we get to the foundational section for that. So thank you. Public meeting, minutes of the public meeting that we had on October 21st. Everyone, I hope, had a chance to review those. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the October 21 trustees meetings?
We're getting motion to accept.
Robert made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Be a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we have our regular acceptance of donations. I separated this from the other because one required a public hearing, this does not. Lydia in her report detailed the source of $229.79. Lydia, I'm not sure whether we really need to include refunds like from Amazon as a donation.
Well, we talked about it at the last meeting and Melanie said that my donations to accept had to match the bank statement.
So that's why we're just,
Yes.
okay. Well, that makes sense. When we had the trustees meeting, remember there was a little discussion about accepting donations, and some people were not as, I don't want to say scrupulous, but as detailed as we are
Okay.
on that. And I don't know what it's better to be overly cautious than.
So if they don't put those in there, then that number does not match the bank statement.
I see. And that's where we put refunds, things like
It
that, go back.
It went out, but then it came back in.
Because it was something we paid for with donations, and then it was a refund, it had to go back to the bank account. Got it. Okay, with that, is there a motion to accept the donations of cash for the month of October of $229.79?
I make a motion to accept $229.79.
And is there a second?
Also.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I gotta get out my iPad because Melanie sent me an email with comments, so I better read her comments. You did get the financials and so the treasurer, of course, Joe goes through and does sort of a summary. The interest earned on trustee accounts was $45.24. She deposited the foundation check, which was received shortly after our last meeting, the $10,293.19 into the general operation account. First Seacoast Bank. And she had mentioned at the last meeting that she wanted to have at an upcoming meeting, have us talk about an investment plan for 2026. She said, let's hold off until the December meeting to further discuss and make decisions, because she won't be here at the December meeting. I was looking at those financials and noting when our CDs are maturing. The larger one matures next September. We have a smaller one, I think, of about $10,000 maturing in March of 26. And the question that we'll want to discuss, so this is just for future thinking, is would we have a need to have some substantial amount of money available, at some point that we don't want to tie it up? And the only thing that I could think of, and I think that Melanie agreed at this point, because we're through we just have a few dribs and drabs left of the building project, is it would be good to see what the select board ultimately recommends for the 2026 budget. And then for example, if they did not recommend or enough money for us to continue the part-time library assistant position, we need to really talk about, do we want to use funds to continue that position? And I don't necessarily expect that that's at risk, but the next question would be if the budget doesn't pass in March and we're left with a default budget, which would be less than our current budget is. And then we really have to think through, do we potentially need to have available any of our targets? Not to be discussed today, but I just wanted to put those topics out.
It would be less because the default budget goes back to what it was this year. But if they raise the insurance premiums of the state brings their stuff, that has to be built in.
Yes, but, and we'll talk more about this, because we can, when you look back at this year's budget and you look at the budget for next year, and you look at the documents that we sent in, Lydia laid out what the numbers are, and because we're assuming all the responsibility for this building, including utilities, that's where, I mean, if the budget, if we're left with a default budget, no wages are gonna go, wages don't change. As you're right, insurance, they have to cover that in the default. But it would really mean we would be left with this year's budget to pay for
We really need to
all
get
the
this,
electricity. So we're gonna talk about this next month.
the word out. That the reason our month, ours went up, but theirs went down because we took over that responsibility.
Well, and that got discussed a little bit last night, but that's just the only, when I think about it, those are the questions that we would have in financial risk, I suppose, you say. And they might want to consider what dollars you need to have handy to address those matters. So that's the October now for the investment. And Jack isn't here yet. I told him to plan to come at 6. We may get through the rest of the agenda.
Yes.
So we're gonna skip over Jack and Dannon's not here as well. So we'll get around to talk about the select board meeting when we get down to the building. So that brings us to the director's report, Lydia.
So I don't have a copy of your agenda, but I saw that you want me to talk about the ABC meeting. That went, all went fabulously well. At first they said they didn't have any questions for us, and then, Susan brought up that they inquired a little bit about the solar, project and, wanting a little bit more information about that. So the only thing that we could, add or give them for updates was that there was an issue on the panels on this roof for pretty much the whole month of October, end of September. So that between the weather and that, we really didn't get any benefit from the solar in October. So we told them, what the bills had been. And the last bill was $1,157. And we had gotten it down, obviously, in August to $397. So, Jack and the electricians were here yesterday. Hopefully everything is fine. And things will get better if we can get some sunny days. But other than that, they didn't really have any more questions, and then I was amazed.
And I guess the question is, and we don't know, if they don't have questions, does that mean that they're comfortable with the budget as presented? Or does that mean they don't have questions, but
They've already made up their mind to know.
I thought they were extremely positive,
I do too. They all seem to be.
very positive.
the other thing that we'll talk a little bit more about, but Connor shared with them, and this was Wednesday afternoon, and I think it was Wednesday morning. I met with Connor. It was a busy day, but at any rate, we had discussion about rebates. And so after he and I had talked, and he had done a lot of thinking, obviously, about the various rebates. He didn't know about the Eversource rebate that we haven't received yet, but that is going to be coming in at around $4,700. So he shared with the ABC what he and I had talked about as far as the use of the dollars and even the potential $42,000 federal rebate, which they apply for next year. And I just had related to him that the trustees felt strongly that anything related to solar should be dedicated to the library because of that payment of non-tax dollars. And he did not oppose that. So he related the various recommendations to the ABC, and they supported all of the recommendations. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But I think you would have, if you had a chance to read his report, Connor's report to the select board, he detailed that stuff. So that also sort of came up when it was related to solar. But you're right, the committee did not have a lot of questions. They didn't question our staffing plan, and Robert and Lydia were also there for that meeting. I don't think, and obviously the other Lydia. So,
And then, I updated the policies. I'm not sure if you were able to look at them, but I actually separated it. Susan had made a couple of comments over the last few months about really wanting to get only the policy separated. So I mean, not that you don't want to know what the procedure is, but that's not really what you have to vote on. So, going forward, I will go through and separate the policy versus procedure. And then I'll send it to you, but you won't only have to be looking at the things that are pertinent to your meeting.
we only have to vote on policies. We don't have to vote on.
And so I included what the old one looked like, so you could see exactly how this came out of that. Okay. So I'm just looking to see, if you're going to approve this new policy or no.
And I like the format when I did it. It was pretty straightforward, kind of simple to read and almost scannable.
And in the email that I sent to everyone, I did include what the key changes were in these. And it was basically some increases in fees. Because we found that with the non-resident cards, if they're using a credit card, the processing, $2 processing fee that we were charging was not covering it. It cost us just a little bit less than $3 to process a credit card for that amount. Credit card fees go up as the amount goes up. So that was why we were wanting to do that. And then the other thing was, the replacement cards, library cards, it costs us $3 to make a card. So we're not charging anyone for the first initial card that they get. This is only for the replacements. If they lose it, they want a new one. So that's just replacement ones.
Does that $3 include small and bigger keychain?
Yes, it gives you a regular credit card size one and then also one for your keychain.
So if somebody came and said, well, I'll write you a check, a non-resident, I'll write you a paper check for $100, there's no $3 fee.
There's no fee. It's only on credit card processing.
Okay, this is like the town hall. This, I don't know what their fee is, if it's $3, I think it's a 3% or something.
It's the interest that the credit card's charging.
Yeah.
Business.
I just wanted to make sure that we were actually getting the full $100.
Yeah,
What the average taxpayer pays.
yeah, that's not. Any other comments or questions?
I had a question, and it's sort of a little personal, but I wondered if other people could have the same issue. So my youngest daughter, lives in China. Her address is actually my home, and when she comes and to visit, this is her only US address is 70 Cahoon Way, and that's what she has a Barrington license, her car's license, all those things. Is she, I always wonder, because she has a card still, she takes, when she comes and visits, she takes, is she able to?
It's the legal resident.
It's because it's the only place she lives in the United States.
She's like a military person, it's like it being in the military.
But I was just wondering though.
She's a legal resident of Barrington, yes.
But that's what a license is.
Yeah. I was just wondering, because it's the only place she lives.
So she can download from Forward Drive.
And we'll just go to China and use your library.
I just wanted to tell them that, because it was just like, and it was one about military too, it would be the
Oh, yeah,
same
it's the
thing.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Any other comments or questions? And I know we appointed a committee. This is a minor, we had just reviewed and approved the policy like 2 months ago. So this was a small policy adjustment, but going forward, I think Lydia is going to work with, I'm assuming staff will draft policy changes, review it with our little policy committee, and then bring them forward for us to vote on.
Yep.
So, and so that committee, I know, we appointed people and then like Richard already skipped town to go to Europe. So,
I know, I'm
and Europe,
yeah.
so. So is there a motion to approve the amendment to the circulation policy?
I make a motion to accept the amendment to the circulation policy.
I'll second.
Hey,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just made notes on who made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I know it's gonna be a short meeting. So. Lydia, anything else that you want to review from your report?
I don't think so. I think it was self-explanatory, other than, the statistics are still very strong. I really thought that when we started getting dark out, things would slow down. We had over 200 people yesterday. Yeah,
I thought
it was a Monday. Yeah, and typically people don't go out on Monday.
it was a very good newsletter.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
22 outside groups used this building last month.
he's here.
Hi, Joe.
Come on in.
Come on in.
How is everybody?
Good, how are you?
Good.
That's all I'm going
The only thing that I want to, this is related to policy and it's something I think our committee will need to talk to Lydia about, is we have more people using this room, booking this room. But when I was here on Saturday, it turned out some group, like housing associations or road associations, that looking for a place to meet, and it's perfect setting for them. But if a group is in town, they of course don't have to pay anything, they just reserve the room. But if they don't show up and don't call that they're not coming, then the room has been set aside.
Yeah.
And so Lydia, and that's what happened on Saturday, and Lydia and I talked a little bit about, I mean, besides calling them and saying, we expect you to call us if you're not going to use it or whatever. I need to think about that. So that may come up with the whole meeting room policy and.
Yeah, we were at our micro meeting. We were talking about that might be the meeting room policy might be needed in tweak. Now that we're in here, we're seeing how the space is being used and that kind of thing. But we definitely gonna have to do the privacy one next because we have to be in compliance with that new law in January. So that'll be the next one.
So, Jack, thank you. We have gotten through early stuff. That's why I said 6 o'clock. I figured that way you shouldn't have to sit through any of stuff. And when we talked a little bit about the ABC meeting and their interest in how is solar going and that sort of thing, they and the select board are interested, of course, I think, to see how we're doing on solar. I think we've convinced them that we need a year of experience before we
Oh, yeah.
make assumptions about
You
what the
can't,
bills are going to be.
particularly this time of year, you can't make any assumptions because.
Yeah.
I was looking at the production on the west facing roof yesterday, and it was a beautiful sunny day. And the sun doesn't get anywhere near that far around, so. That's the biggest producer. Anyway, we spent the last 5 weeks chasing around this problem. And we found the problem yesterday. It turns out that, there are connectors that are made to connect cables together. And there's a standard cable and then there are non-standard connectors. And the electricians did a job about 3 months ago where they had to work with a panel with a non-standard connector. So they bought a bunch of connectors and left them in their truck. So essentially the cables that connect a string of panels together, you make a cable to go from one end to the other, and connectors on the ends of some of those cables were loose. So they fixed two of them on one of the inverters and two of them on the other, and then the third one failed this morning. So I know where it is. They just have to get up there and fix it.
And are you hopeful then that that will be a,
Oh, that's it. I know it's it. I mean, you could take the two metal parts and wiggle them.
but they're not gonna, this is not something we're gonna have to be keeping an eye for?
No, this, I mean, this is really unusual. Normally these things just run without any problem. It's just they picked this connector and decided to use it. And when you put them together, you can't see it. It's inside. But when you take out the parts and stick them together, it's like, well, fellas, this doesn't fit. So anyway, the 20 is running without failing today. The 15 failed today on one string that they didn't touch. So they just have to get up there and fix that string and we're all done. The back one hasn't done anything. It just works.
And the ground mount,
The ground mount's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Works fine.
and can you take us back?
Yeah.
Those of us who don't really know anything about these panels up there and the
Sure.
moon goes down. So can you explain, and if I'm the only one who has this, okay, yeah. So give us a rundown on how solar is working and,
Okay, so what happens is, those three separate arrays, which run independently of each other, supply energy to the building. When the building needs energy, it takes it from the solar first, because it's inside the meter. And then if the solar generates more than what the building needs, then it goes out through the meter, because the meter measures in two directions. So when the utility sends you a bill, there are two items on the bill. One is sales, which is the amount of energy we send out to the grid. And the other item is purchases, which is the amount of energy you buy from the grid. So on a cloudy day, you obviously have mostly purchases because we're not making much power. On a bright sunny day, I can't say about this building yet because all the problems we've had, but the town hall is running about 50-50. So 50% is used inside the building and 50% goes out and generates credits. The energy that comes into the building is valued at full retail. So if you look at your electric bill, it has a meter charge, which you pay regardless. It has an energy charge, which is the actual volume of electricity you buy. And it has delivery and transmission, which is the cost of local lines and poles and transmission lines and all that stuff. And then there's some taxes and fees that are kilowatt hour based. So all of that stuff that comes into the building comes in at retail, which right now is somewhere around 16, 17 cents. I think that the electric rate is now 11.2 and likely to go up again in 6 months. So then the energy that goes out through the meter, you get the full value of the energy, the full value of transmission, and 25% of delivery. And no taxes or fees, so it's discounted. That's probably worth, I think, about 13.5 cents. So the other thing you need to know is when the power goes out, the solar goes out also. And that's actually a legal requirement because you don't want to blow some lineman out of his shorts down the street by having your solar run when the power's out. So the inverter actually requires power to run. So when the power goes out, the inverter shuts off on that.
and that's when our generator would
Right.
theoretically, at least hopefully practically kick in.
Yeah.
To
Right.
power the building
Right.
to whatever extent needs.
Yep.
So we haven't lost power
Is
in the building yet.
it possible to store some, the stuff we send in case in the future, the wholesale price goes down and retail price goes up? Is that possible?
Well, so right now, there isn't a good price signal to justify batteries.
So we need to purchase batteries in order to.
Yeah, you need batteries,
Yeah.
but at some point, if we get what are called tiered rates, which a lot of locations have tiered rates where you pay the highest amount during high demand times, which would be 9 to 5, when you're mostly using power, the price signal changes. So if you could actually buy power at night or take your excess from the solar and put it in the battery and then dump the batteries during the day, you can play the market that way. We don't have those price signals in New Hampshire yet. And batteries are not exactly cheap. And third, you've got a generator. So, I mean, generators in general are cheaper than batteries. That one I'm sure is not, but you own it already. So, so long as it runs and it's not a pain to maintain, that's the best solution right now.
They said they introduced some repairs on that.
There was something that, yes, I don't remember the detail. I think I have an email that probably describes it. But the generator connection people had serviced that equipment last spring to the tune of $900. And then when they tested it more recently this fall, there was something amiss. It was something that had to be cleaned or some little piece that had to be replaced. And so that was a $500 charge. So
And at some point, that thing will become too expensive to maintain, and it's really huge. It's probably 2 or 3 times the size that the building requires, I would think.
well, it was put in for a medical building which had more demands than we do. But it didn't seem reasonable since the servicing of it said it's perfectly functional.
Is it exercising regularly? Is it
Yes.
hurt?
I mean, that business of it goes off
Yeah,
once a week. I mean, I don't hear it, but it's supposedly,
I've heard it.
you've heard it. So yes,
Good.
it is now.
Good.
So
That's,
solar shuts down just for like a test once a week or something like that?
No, the solar doesn't shut down.
Right, but I mean, it comes in. You said that, okay, so we can't be having the energy come from the solar and the generator at the same
no, the
time.
generator would only go on.
Well, so we're actually protected for that, because the solar sits outside the generator. So when the power goes out, the solar goes off and the generator turns on, and the generator only feeds the building, so the two never interact.
Right, but you said that the solar never goes off.
Well, if the power goes off, the solar goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It has to,
Well, okay,
by law.
but you said you tested once a week. I'm confused. It sounds like you
It's two
tested.
different things.
No, we were talking about the generator.
Right.
So the solar, no, I
But
never.
in order to test the generator, don't you have to shut the solar off? Because you can't have both coming at the same time.
No, because they don't actually turn on the power. They just start the generator, make sure it runs.
Oh, because I was confused with all. both.
Yeah, that would not be.
Reasonable question.
Yeah, that's why it's, I don't know that much about it.
Yeah.
It didn't sound good.
Yeah, no, that'd be it.
Okay.
Jack, what information is on the monitor at the front desk? I don't know if it's on other monitors as well.
Well, so actually, at some point we should explore this. I can give you a document that gives you a whole bunch of choices about what you'd like to see. Like for instance, there's a yield display of what it did yesterday.
I think
You could see a graph of yield from today, this month, this year, cumulative years, and obviously some of those aren't worth doing yet because it's not. But as we run it more and accumulate more data, we can turn on more things. So all I do is send you a new file and you just load it. Just run it.
What does that mean, yield? How much did it?
Yeah,
Does anybody, you get your daily yield reports, right?
Not daily, I get monthly readout.
Oh, okay. Well, so there is a daily yield report and anybody who wants one, just send me your email address and I'll
I don't
give it.
even know what it is.
Well, it's a document that shows how much power you made today, what percentage of the power that you made was expected. In other words, did I make 100% today? Did I make 120% today? What was expected? It was raining today, so I only made 40% of what was expected. Some of it's it's not incredibly precise. You know, they make this decision about what percentage of the expected you actually made, but how did you get to the expected?
Right.
It's not a perfect tool, but I get one from everybody,
It's
from
the
all my arrays, just so I see that they're running.
is the expected what the average is?
Hmm?
Is the expected what the average has been probably?
Well, so what we do is we generate a report called a PV Watts report, and it gives you expected production per month by region. And we load that in as a basis, but you've got a 10% weather variable in here anyway, because from year to year, stuff happens. I mean, for instance, this year's a good example. June was awful. And yet, production for the year is really good because August, September, and October were spectacular. So you can't, but that's why you want to say, you don't want to make any decisions about anything or really get your head around it until we've done a year of production, because there are too many variables here. And we started this at just about almost the worst time to start something like this, because you're going downhill.
Well, July and August
It's okay.
were good.
Yeah.
And then we've had the connection issues, so
Yeah.
we didn't really capture.
Yeah, I mean, as an example, how this is. I got 5 emails yesterday from people in the North Country saying my solar hasn't been working since the 10th.
And cloudy.
No, it snowed on the 10th and everybody's roof was covered. I had to say, everyone, have you looked at your roof? So, you know, I mean, when it snows, as long as that snow's up there, the thing's not going to do anything.
And that leads me to a question I've had about the ground mount, because one advantage of ground mount is it's angled
Yeah.
more. So what should we expect come winter?
Well, that should shed faster than the roof for sure. And even more so because we did such a good job insulating the attic, so that roof doesn't even get warm anymore, right? When
Yeah.
if it got warm, that would help shed it. But in general, panels are slipperier than shingles. So,
I was just gonna ask, so
Yeah.
if the snow goes off faster with
Yeah.
solar than it does with the regular shingle.
yeah. The other thing is when you see like the top of the panel, the snow will slip, the whole panel will slip.
Yeah.
And the top will become exposed and then they'll start to heat up and then they'll just slide off.
One of the electricians, when they were here, had said that they must have had a client that had solar panels, not that they installed them. And they were complaining about not, it being snow covered, they're not getting energy. And the fellow said, take a roof rake and put
Rubber blade on it.
no, one of those things you go in the pool with. Noodle, put that on the edge of it.
Yeah.
And fold the snow off it.
Yeah.
And they apparently did and were very happy because suddenly they weren't seeing,
Yeah.
production again. Should we even consider?
Uh-uh.
Don't do that. Just leave it alone.
I mean, if Jim wanted to consider doing it, yeah, maybe you could come in and do it, but I gotta tell you, I have even steeper ones than this, and I never scrape my panels because it's just impossible. Sooner or later,
We
they
wouldn't
get
see anything about the roof. It would only be the.
well, that one would be easy to clear. Somebody wanted to go out, yeah, I mean, you just a broom, honestly, broom with a long handle.
Oops, our snow rake.
What will happen in general, if you clean off the bottom half, pretty soon the upper half is gonna come down anyway, because when they warm up a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, you'll often see that these will shed in one big shot. And just all of a sudden, you know, this rubber on the roof, the panels get clear. Because everything gets slippery at the same time.
Yeah, I was not thinking about, the roof is what it is. I just figured the ground mount. Is that work?
Yeah, that would be okay. In general, I tell people not to deal with the roofs.
A few questions.
Sure.
One is the credits. Is anybody gathering them and selling them to a collector?
Well, I haven't
Aggregator?
gotten the NEPL number back for this building yet.
What was that?
And well,
The
there's an organization called NEPL, which is New England Power Pool.
Okay.
And you have to register your system with them. And then you can report your RECs to them,
What's Rex?
renewable energy credits. Every megawatt of power you make generates a credit. It's an extra benefit. And right now RECs are selling for $36 a piece. So this probably makes 60 a year or something like that, 50 or 60 a year. So it's not a ton of money, but it's money. But did you see the email from me about the collapse of the reporting system?
No.
Oh, okay. So there was a German company that makes the loggers that I put in. There's one up there, a gray box that reports stuff. And then there was an American company that did the REC reporting, and those two companies split. Without telling anybody anything. So I suddenly discovered that no RECs had been reported for even the second quarter. So I'm in the process of, I've hired a software guy to write software to acquire the data. I've created a company to be an independent reporter to report the RECs, and those pieces are just about coming together. So by the time I get your number, it'll be all together. And that's not automatically. The logger just sends the data every month. And this friend of mine who wrote the software takes that data and accumulates it automatically and spits it to NEPL. It's all done in the background. It'll take 6 months to get the first payment. It takes 6 months to cycle. So the first quarter, which is January through March, actually gets paid like November. So it'll be a while before you get your first payment.
So Jack, you're going to be our lifetime partner on this.
Pretty much. Yes.
I hope you live a long time.
Yeah, no, I've already got handed the spreadsheet for the town office, Paul back to us, and now I'm doing that, so. I have this fairly complex spreadsheet that calculates the value of electricity for retail and meter credit. So once we get this thing rolling, I'll be running that spreadsheet too, so it will actually tell you the value of what you generate.
And so, and you're monitoring our system, like all the systems you've installed, you're monitoring them all the time.
Well, so let me say this, I get 60 yield reports a day. There are weeks when I don't get to them. I try to get through them at least once a week, just go through them real quick to make sure everything's running, but it would not be a bad idea. Actually, you guys see it over the desk. It'd be a good idea if someone consciously once a day just looked and said, oh yeah, it's running. I mean, it's unlikely that this whole thing would stop running because it's two separate systems, really. You know, that one out there is kind of independent from these. But, you know, communication does go down for one reason or another. And sometimes it's not that it's not running, it's that it's not communicating. So it'd be good that somebody just looks.
I see that you're taking notes.
Yeah, I mean, I have customers who just,
Add that to my.
yeah. So customers fall into two categories. Those that are completely obsessed and never stop looking, and those that are completely obsessed for 2 weeks and never look again. So I prefer the first kind. I mean, they can be mildly irritated, but it's better that they're watching their own system, really.
Yeah.
You know, it's, somebody should do it. That's why I suggest somebody get a yield report. So every morning you just get a report, oh yeah, it's running. So I'm looking at you, because you'll know what you're getting.
Well, doesn't that, we've got the screen out there that shows it. So if that's working, that'll show that it's running.
It'll show it's running, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they just have to look at that.
Absolutely. And if somebody just looks at that once a day, just, oh yeah, it's running. I mean, I do get error reports, so every time this thing's tripped off, I know it.
I know with the foundation, we talked about community education, about energy alternatives and solar. I don't know, we've not progressed too far on what we want to do with that, but I think that's something we want to loop you in on.
Yeah, sure.
Just, you know, community education.
I have a friend that I've been working, who has a summer camp that I built a couple of little gadgets to demonstrate how solar works for kids. It's worked really well. I mean, a little solar panel and a water pump, and you can show exactly what happens. It's really cool.
I have a friend who lives in Lee and they have a little pond. They took what was sort of a low part of their property and had a little pond, and it didn't work this year, but last year they put a little fountain to put in the middle of it, and it was solar operated. And unfortunately, we had a drought this year, so.
A lot of rain, doesn't it?
But you know, there are things like that that are,
Yeah.
I think would be interesting, especially for kids.
I've just become part of the energy committee. And Cindy is, of course, part of the foundation. She's not president of the energy committee, so we're probably going to gang up on Jack and try to set up to set up kind of an educational thing that might happen quarterly here. I mean, it is, I think, incumbent on us, because we've got 2 good solar panels on town buildings, to be able to feed back to the community. There are other things that are simple that I've mentioned, and that is that last summer or last winter, I went around town after snowfalls and took pictures of roofs. And it's quite interesting to see how roofs melt the snow. A well-insulated roof or a completely non-insulated roof are entirely different. And there are thermal bridges that produce nice little lattices in the snow as it's melting. And all of that tells you that you've got a house that is just melting the snow on the roof and you're not getting it. It's things like that that I think are simple enough. People to look at it themselves and decide whether they need to get somebody in.
Just, you don't have kilowatt hour meters, do you? Kilowatt hour?
We did.
Oh, good, because that's a really good thing. Those are really helpful too. But there's all kinds of things we could do. I think it'd be fun.
Well, I think the other thing this building did, I don't know about what they're doing at the rec building or at what they did at town hall, but there was so much effort from Bowen and the architect that they put in about the efficiency of the building itself. There were some pretty interesting strategies.
This is by far the best building in town, energy wise, without a question. I mean, the town hall has propane furnaces in the attic, which is like something you did in the eighties. It's not really a great thing. And I don't know what they're doing
I don't know what
at the rec building. We've been sort of locked out of there.
So that's what they do in the eighties?
Well, propane boiler, propane furnaces in the attic. I mean, it's not, that's
They just built that a year ago.
I know.
That's right.
I know.
It's an awesome slab.
But we should just be happy that this building is,
Yeah.
because it really is spectacular.
And I remember even when Jason visited the factory in Maine where they took wood product and turned it into whatever insulation, and I even saw that it was featured on this old house not that long ago, but
It's waste products
Yeah.
from sawmills that otherwise get chucked in the ravine that are made into insulation.
and the amount of insulation, it really is well done, so you don't always see that stuff, but hopefully you feel it. Anybody have any other questions for Pat?
Thank you.
Sure.
That was really great.
The town's been over a year, right? So how is their,
We projected a 9-year payback on that, and we're right on track this year. I mean, the production for the year is like from November to November is like within 150 kilowatt hour. That's just dumb luck, but it's good, but it's dumb luck.
Is that a 44 kilowatt system?
Yeah.
I mean, we have 104 panels, I think, on this roof,
This is 62 total.
62 total.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we have a lot of heat pumps to run.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But they're pretty much right on target.
So you would think that next year, this time, when we're preparing our budget for 2027, we'll have some reasonable data to
Well,
provide.
yeah, because right now we have nothing, right? We don't know how well the building performs, we don't know how well the heat pumps perform, we don't know how the solar
We
performs.
did pretty well in the summer. We know we're gonna have something, but
Yeah.
we don't know what the next
Right,
6 months is.
but you know, around about October, we should all sit down and go through all the numbers and figure out. But fortunately, it's really only 2 numbers, right? It's all electric, so we'll actually build the solar building, we'll be able to compare it to what this building was kind of, we have some of that data.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something, we know how much oil they bought.
Whereas the town hall has electricity from solar, but they have heat from propane.
Right.
So,
Okay.
very good.
You'll see some guys on the roof soon.
Okay.
Don't.
Yeah.
So what I sent out to you was the report. I'm moving on to the building project. The report that I did for the select board, and then I have sent you an Excel spreadsheet that had 2 tabs. If you, over 2 tabs. In working, meeting with Connor, they had certainly wanted me to do a summary of the building project, and then he asked that I do it side by side. So the people who last saw a budget and saw what we presented when we presented the building proposal back in 24, and then see how those numbers compared. So that's what those 2 summaries were about. To get to those, I worked with Amy Doherty, the finance director, and as did Lydia, and she printed out all the bills, not the bills, but all the charges against the bond, all the individual invoices that they had paid. There would be once a month from Bowen, once a month from SFP, and then a lot of other invoices as we move towards the furnishing of the building. A lot of the furnishings were bought from a particular company, but they were also bought from other companies and from Amazon even. So lots of individual invoices. So I tell you that, and I probably even have those list of invoices in my folder here. But then I went through to try and tie them out with what we have been using that S&P was giving us for progress on the budget. Now, they didn't have all those details unless I gave them and said, this is how much to put in the budget for furniture and such. So when, the finance director said we had $39,000 and change left in bond funds. And I was looking and saying, we have $45,000 in bills to be paid. We still have not paid the second half of the security system bill, which is a little over $20,000, because the front door and this program door are still not working properly because they have to connect with the town's block 5 IT system in order for the whole security monitoring to work. And they have not resolved the connections. Back Bay has been involved as well. They've given the codes that are needed to do it. And I'm looking at Lydia, it's still not resolved. And it seems like, she's pressing on them, and every few weeks we'll get some email and they're communicating with one another, and it's still not working. So we're not paying them until that's resolved, needless to say. But there was some outstanding bill from Upper Library Interiors of around almost $10,000. And I think most of that has been delivered, but there's still a problem. Couple of pieces, like the toppers. If you go in the children's area, they all have toppers now, but one of them, the topper, is several inches narrower than it's supposed to be. It doesn't match up. So there's still some more there. And then there are a few other things that brought the total up to around 45. So I've been very nervous, as you know, about that. And we're very grateful that the foundation stepped in, even with that uncertainty, figure it out. Well, what it turned out when I went through and reconciled every single invoice was that in error, the 2 of the last solar project bills had been billed against the bond and not against the separate solar donations. And that was just an error, an innocent error, but once that got resolved, then the money came back to being, pretty closely matched. And that led us to showing a surplus of approximately, a little under $65,000.
That's after we figured in we're gonna pay the 45.
That's after paying. So these numbers, the owner costs, like the security bill, you see $46,205. Today, we paid 20,000 and change, about 21,000 of that. The HVAC maintenance, we had the idea, because there was money available, can we pay for like 3 years maintenance in advance? And I talked to Connor about that because I wasn't sure from an accounting perspective if that would be allowable. And he checked with the auditors, and no, you can't prepay. You could do the first year because we're in that first year and we had the first maintenance service visit from them, but that was as much as we could do there. So that is recorded as having been paid. They haven't been paid yet, but so yes, this includes all the furniture that's been ordered with bond funds, all the shelving. And it has the last 2 items, the snow blower and the fire extinguishers. Those have not been purchased yet. So basically this is the full net amount. That 64,300 includes the 28,000 capital reserve. And so that capital reserve funds is still in the capital reserve. That was going to be the last money to be spent. So clearly with this, we do not need that. So to use those funds.
That's subtracted out what the foundation gave us.
Yes, when you look at the top part of when I had project revenues, I'm looking at this project one. The foundation deposited $20,000 to secure the purchase of the building. That was before anything was voted by the town. So if we hadn't gotten the building, that would have been returned to the foundation. The next number is the additional donation that was made by the foundation in the spring of 24. Those two dollar amounts, the 28,95,648 is the amount that the town set the bond amount for. They took a round number of $30,000 off the 3.331 million. They didn't take an exact number, they just rounded it up to 30,000. So when you look at those, the project budget, and then what I had as project revenues and of course, they transferred the 300,000 out for the rec. So that's how those revenue numbers came to be. The surplus number you see at the bottom, I basically went against the project budget, not against that 3.029, because I figured that's what voters had agreed we could spend. In any event, that's what leaves us with 64,000 surplus, which we talked about it at the foundation. At the time, we talked about the request that they would help us with the last amount of furniture at 10,000. And I think the foundation also agreed it's good politics to be able to not overspend your bond and in fact be able to return some to the taxpayers. So that's the detail on those. And then this other one that, of course, you saw, which helped to explain, because I think a question had come up, well, what did you do with all that contingency? You had a $200,000 contingency. And this clearly shows, yes, but look at how much we cut out of that furniture, fixtures, and equipment section. We needed to spend $282,000. We only budgeted 80,000. And if we had only been able to spend that 80,000, we wouldn't have any new furniture. We wouldn't have the chairs.
Chairs, $8,000.
Well,
How much you get?
the total for the furniture, the phone system,
Oh,
computer systems, security system, we put in $15,000 for security.
okay. So it includes everything.
And we spent 46,000. You know what, the numbers were way different and we really could not. I don't know what, well, I was gonna say, I don't know what we're thinking.
When did the book cases come from?
The new bookcases, the shelving systems, that was Tucker Library Interiors, who has supplied our shelving in the past. We reused what we could of the existing shelving. And the total for shelving is 123,000. Remember back in March when Amy presented all these numbers and we approved 125,000 up to 125,000 for shelving. And we approved 75,000 for furniture, we spent 55,000 on furniture. But the shelving is expensive, and that was meant getting toppers and end pieces. And the last addition was the shelving company neglected to include in their quote anchors, so that books don't fall through when you put the book in. It doesn't go all the way through and down through. Apparently, that's a particular problem in the children's area.
Yeah.
It's really,
So they
So
didn't,
anyway,
did they put that in later?
no, well, that's what we ended up ordering. We knew we were gonna have enough money in the budget, so we ordered $9,000 worth of additional.
Backers and three additional shelving units.
Susan, with this surplus money, is that something that we could look for a fence?
No,
No.
what we ended up agreeing with, not now,
Right.
what we ended up agreeing with the town administrator and the select board was that, well, there are several pots of money. The money that the rebates that are related to solar are the $10,000 rebate. I'm trying to remember
Those rebates come back to the library.
remember how that first $10,000 rebate is going to be applied to next year's budget. And that's going to basically be applied to cover utility. I mean, that's the biggest amount, that was the biggest jump in our operating budget is utilities. And we don't know how much of that is going to be how much the solar is going to help us with that. So basically, we agreed if that would reduce that, that's going to be, make our budget look much better. And it's a reasonable use of those funds. The 7,400 and the 4,700 that are rebates based on insulation and energy efficiency. I felt that those were tax dollars that were used. It's reasonable for those dollars to go back to the town. The $42,000 amount of potential, who knows what's going to happen in Washington. The most recent email or advisory put out by the IRS clarified that if you have added a solar system to your home or business, that you can get a $30,000 rebate if the system has been installed and is functioning by the end of this calendar year. Initially, it was if you had paid for it, even if it hadn't yet been installed, you would be eligible for that rebate. But again, we have met that criteria. Now, that's not to say that they could not change their mind in Washington and decide, no, we don't think we want to do that at all. We're just going to eliminate that. I think the fact that they made this later IRS ruling at a time when, we're getting to the end of the tax year, I think it's a good shot that the town will be eligible for that rebate. So, so the state rebate we got on solar, that's what's going to reduce our budget for next year. The energy efficiency stuff is going to the town. The other thing is that $28,000 that was for the library community center capital reserve. We asked that that those funds, at least I'm asked, as you saw, a minimum of $15,000 of those funds be transferred into the library technology capital reserve to fund our 5-year technology program. It really has turned out that it was a very good idea that Lydia created that plan. In order to do that transfer, what has to happen is the voters in March will need to vote to close the capital reserve for the library/community center and take 15,000 of that and add it to the technology capital reserve. And that means that we will not need to have a warrant article for an annual addition to the library capital reserve with technology until at least 2029. So that was good news. And so the ABC and the select board supported that. So we will not have a separate warrant article on the 26th ballot to add 3,000 or 5,000 to the tech reserve. So the risk for us is if the voters disagree with, and those two are contingent, if they they can't add 15,000 unless they agree to close out the other capital reserve. So it's no new tax dollars, it's a transfer. The balance of that would go back into the general fund.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Okay.
And I thought that was reasonable and funds us well into the future. If it doesn't pass the voters, then we still have about $5,200 in the tech capital reserve, which would easily carry us for next year and the year after, but we would then need to have that capital reserve expunged.
And so that $64,000 number, that will go back to, is that going back to the town's capital reserve?
The options for the 64, of which, well, it's really less than that. It's more like 35 because 30 of it
It's gonna get paid out.
is that closing that capital reserve and moving some into our tech. The remaining amount of that, about 35,000, is bond money. And so Connor proposed, since we really met all our needs here, except for the fence. We'll talk separately about the fence.
Okay.
But, would be to, that money could go back into the general fund of the taxpayers to pay. But when you read the definition of what the bond, what the article was that was passed in March 24, it covered the library and the renovation of the Ramsdale Lane building. And so they would like to have that as a contingency fund for the renovation, which I basically said, fine with me. You know, it really, I'm not thinking about fencing, but that wasn't in our original proposal. Fencing part was, furniture was, shelving was. Fencing really wasn't there. And that, I didn't bring it up and I didn't even think of it quite honestly. So the other pot of money, that 30%, would come back. It wouldn't be additional money for the library, but it would go to fund library operating budget when that money comes in. So, and if it doesn't come in, then we're just, and it doesn't. So it still benefits the taxpayer, but it comes directly to the library. It's not money that is going to be shuffled off into some of its work. So that's that was that. We can talk about the library staffing in the next. It's not related to the building. Lydia, your comment about these fencing, what and for others. I don't know if you've noticed that we had fencing installed that Barrington Power paid for in front of the solar array. We think it looks very nice. Most of us like the color of it as opposed to sharp white, and it's more in keeping with the color of the building. So Lydia in particular, and the other Lydia and Wendy and I have talked about a little concern about the security. Not that kids are running into the road, but they could, you know, and having some fencing along that road 125 line would be a good idea. Wendy has checked with Lowe's, apparently has a community donation program, and they're, I don't know who, somebody who works for Lowe's or something has offered and encouraged us to, you know, apply to them. Obviously, we could go to the foundation again and ask them. I don't know, Lydia, do you remember what it cost for the fencing in front of the solar panels?
I thought it was just shy of 5,000.
So I thought it was 5,000.
Yeah. And that's a pretty long strip, so I'm assuming we could be talking $15,000.
There's also a way I've seen that they had got really thick shrubs that were about 8 feet tall and they're very really tight together and you can't hardly get through them. That's more.
The house across the street from me has those. A lot of people do this as sound barriers, but I think the feeling of staff, and we can revisit this. I mean, that would cost money as well.
Right.
Is to,
And there could be something eventually for staff that you could certainly add
Right.
drugs and things for that, but I think
Yeah.
for safety.
But the kids can't get, I mean, they're not gonna get through the.
Yeah, but it takes a
Oh,
while
yeah, eventually,
Yeah.
eventually.
10 to 15 years. It take a while.
yeah.
I need to go fast enough, yeah.
The other thing that I've seen some places have, you know, lollipop trees. Deer, strangely, if they get hungry enough, eat the bottom of those trees. Roger, you had a comment?
If I may,
Yeah, please.
Eddie Geddes, who was originally part of the building committee, mentioned at one point that his brother was involved with Home Depot, I believe, and would have an in for us on,
I forgot about that.
it might be worth,
Yeah.
had some kind of an estimate of length or whatever.
There was also another grant option, which is the T-Mobile has a program. And they specifically want to fund outdoor community spaces. But I think they would be, I don't know if they would just do a fencing. I mean, that's the safety, but if we wanted benches and other development of our outdoor space for use. There would be an option for that as well. So I think we have that, and quite honestly, we have trustee funds. So,
So I think what happened with the fencing was we went and then who we kind of picked to do gave us an estimate. So you can get, an estimate of the cost.
and, if Home Depot has, the similar kind of fencing and equipment, that's very nice, but I would want to have that tan fencing and then white fencing
No.
over here, because it's, so we'll have to see. I don't know if they fund it. Or more likely, I think, that they would give you and install a product that they sell, because that is obviously more cost effective, but there are ways that we should look into that. My feeling had been, I don't think we need to deal with this before winter, obviously, but we should be planning on that next spring.
And our landscape committee also, I think, also felt like fencing was something that we should look into, to do.
Yeah, at one point, I think Wendy had mentioned thinking, oh, it would just be from like the edge of the front of the building along. But I said, well, we'd have to think about the lawn mowing, the maintenance, all that stuff. And you still need to think about how far down do we need to go to do it. So
I think you only have to go to the edge of here. And then bring it along to this back door right here. That's
well,
my
the
door.
question is, do we need to, if you cut it off,
They're never gonna be using beyond
well,
here.
I think what we need to do is have you and, the staff and the landscape committee explore this, come up with recommendation, and then we look for what source of funding would be for.
We put the fence in, and they just put this much gravel so that they don't have to mow it after the fence.
You guys can figure that out, come up with a plan, and probably should maybe, I don't know what your meeting plan is for that group, but I would think we want to be dealing with this in April.
Yeah, we're meeting's gonna be in February. Yeah, we're gonna meet again in February. So.
Okay, well, that would be,
Yeah.
good work. The other question, and this was something that Connor had asked me to address in my report, was on library staffing. And that came about because when he did the analysis for the 2026 budget, the town figures out exactly what the benefits cost is going to be and the wage cost is going to be. And he makes assumptions about, I think, a COLA, which they haven't established yet, and a step increase. They still have not gotten the report on the compensation analysis. I think they're supposed to have that. I did invite Connor to this meeting and he had a conflict, but he has got it scheduled to come to our December meeting. So that'll be a good discussion for us to have. But basically, I'll still have, I have to look at those numbers again, but I trust his numbers. Our wages and benefits budget went up by something like $17,000. And we have like 6 fewer hours of staff time, but taking a person to full time and the benefits impact of that is significant. And then we wanted to add back in the 15-hour week library assistant we added. So that's why I wrote that section on our staffing, new staffing pattern, how that's working. And one of the select board members last night did want to have a little discussion about that. And because we had told voters that we weren't going to need to increase staffing. And I said, we haven't increased staffing. She asked about FTEs. We do not have more FTEs. We actually have 6 hours less than we had before we made this change. However, this is the justification for it, both staff turnover, rearrangement of staff, cross training, and then a point that I'm remembering from the last couple of years. I think it was when Liz was here, but we actually had to close the library on a couple Saturdays because we did not have 2 people to keep the old library open. So, which is really that common, you have to schedule a minimum of 3 people at all times. in order to know that you're going to be able to beat the library. At least the highest likely. I didn't really sense any pushback or resistance. I'm looking at Roger, because you were there last night. I hope that means that we're going to have support. It doesn't mean that we can do this staffing pattern no matter what. But the question will be what our budget will. So. Any comments or questions on that?
I have a question. Sorry,
You mentioned the snowball, but I don't remember if you said you're gonna buy it.
Yes, the plan has always been that we need to buy a snow blower dedicated to the library, so it needs to come out of our budget. So I did put it in, it would be booked against the bond. I had put it on the agenda because at the time when I was doing this, I wasn't sure we were gonna have, whether we were gonna have to use trustee funds to do that, but we do have enough funds for the bond. As Jim Anderson to price out, he's probably gonna be the one who's using it. And if it's by law, if you have sidewalks, the town is responsible for. I say, if the town has sidewalks, the town is responsible for clearing them. And so we really need to have our own snow blower, because we have substantial amount of sidewalks around the building. Jim recommends an Arians. I forget the code number. He sent it to me. He priced it out at Home Depot and at Lowe's, and it's $1,549 at either location. So I would like to have, just for clarity, I'd like to have a motion from the board to authorize going ahead with that.
I'm not gonna sure to authorize buying a snowball.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions?
May I ask a
Yes.
question? Did Jim consider getting an electric snow blower?
I doubt it. I'm gonna just say I doubt it. I didn't ask him about it.
Yeah.
The energy committee could propose that.
They're available. Just one was a big one, an acre one that was $939 at Ace Everywhere.
How much is it?
$939.
Plug it in to charge it and then.
Liddy, would you ask Jim about that? But we're gonna defer to what Jim's preference is, I have to say, because he's implementing.
Anybody want to get that information to him, Roger?
The other thing that I don't think you need to vote on, and I don't have an exact number, was in the last week or so, Jim brought by a person from the organization that reviews your fire extinguishers. And that person said they all need to be replaced. And the ones we have were ones that were in the building, as far as we knew, they were functioning and okay. But apparently they didn't pass inspection.
So
And
that's one of them there.
that's one of them there.
I think we have record 10.
Oh, 10?
I think so.
Oh,
Well,
I didn't know where they were. I thought maybe we had 5 and I looked them up and they were like $60 each.
It might be 8.
Okay. So,
Maybe we can go through the fire department. Maybe they did. Maybe it could be.
I don't know.
Jim said he's there on order.
They're-
But he didn't have a price from
Okay. So whatever that price is, that is also gonna go. I estimated 300, but I have no idea what this is. So those are 2 expenses that obviously come out. And then the other thing we're working on in the budget is that we need to arrange with Jim and with Bowen, who needs to come down, and we have a final walkthrough and checking off all the boxes and explaining how the different things work and so on.
like the septic tank alarm.
Why don't, did you send that memo out to everybody? I just,
It's within my,
in your
in my
report.
report. Anyhow, there's, the truck wasn't big enough to pump the whole amount out. They have to come pump enough 1,000 gallons tomorrow. And also, do something with the pump that's in. So that's happening tomorrow.
And what I mentioned this at the select board last night because I said, I'm a little nervous because we did not include in our proposed budget for 26. Maintenance issues that we didn't know about. And that you were thinking that it was gonna have to be pumped 4 times a year, and they said, oh, no, it's not. They said it will not need to be. The problem was not only that this is what they told me last night, that they didn't connect the alarm, but they also apparently somehow didn't connect the pumps. Yet they're full. I mean, so I don't,
So pump up system.
I do not know. I do not know what the total issue is, but this is the kind of thing we have to really sit down with Jim and also come up with what is our communication plan. He's going to be doing stuff that he needs to let Lydia know. We need to obviously look at financial implications and so on. So I really hope we get that 30% refund, because if it turns out we need extra money, then.
Medical claim, evidently never answered it.
What did you say?
Medical claim didn't answer it, I guess, for quite a while.
We had those tanks pumped in June, just before we moved in here.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So it's like the should have been just
So I'm not sure what went on.
a lot of poop, but
Well, and I was explaining because the public works director was here also. We had like the whole town crew here. And he was asking about the usage, and we do have roughly, 35 to 1,000 people coming through here a month.
Yeah.
And everybody uses the bathroom, but many.
So I don't know. It would be good news if they say it doesn't have to be pumped, but apparently there's only 2 1,000-gallon tanks out there. That's not very big. I mean, your average house has 1,500-gallon tank, right?
yeah, I mean, a 3-bedroom house we're putting in right now, 1,250. If you
Yeah.
have a 4-bedroom house, which is designed for 8 people, you've got a 1,500-gallon tank. Yeah,
We may end up having to get that pumped more than once a year.
So this is a learning experience.
Or you can only use the bathroom between 2 and 3.
7 and 8 when there's nobody
yeah,
here.
much shit, yeah.
Well, and
For porta potty and stuff.
the,
Would have been analyzed, like about the usage and like the difference between a library and a medical.
the thing,
I know.
and I remember there were like 5 tanks. But there were also the chemical tanks that have been filled and sealed off and all that sort of stuff.
They have much bigger staff than we do, plus they had patients in there all the time, so.
But they might not have had the volume,
I don't know.
you know.
I don't
How
know.
many people do?
But, we had this.
Like,
Well, it was what, 300-400 people
Before
last?
we purchased the building, part of the due diligence was the water testing and the septic system and all that sort of stuff.
3,266 people came through there last month.
That was
All the kids, people using the bathroom.
And I guess signs are going up that, don't put anything down.
Yeah, we did put up signs asking people not to put anything except for toilet paper in the toilet.
Yeah, and make sure that the cleaning crew isn't
Putting clean white.
putting it in place, like that. Oh, my goodness. So, yes. Well, these are things we never worried about. Responsibility. So that's, so we're done.
We get to.
Building, foundation report, Mr. Foundation President.
Yes.
So we have, Foundation has been working on what we're gonna do for a design for the acknowledgement of the donors. It's been out there in paper and,
There's 2 parts to that. One is the scroll that is by the door that is going to be basically a listing, and we spent lots and lots of time trying to be sure that the male and female part of the partnership, or whatever the partnership is, that we've got the right first name and right second name, and they do that. And we've had to make multiple changes as iterations have come through, and I've gone through all 5 binders that's in my room at home, where all the donations came in, and some of those about 60 donors made special note of a dedication meeting. And so we've been talking then about the Book of Benefactors as another part of the acknowledgement. And the Book of Benefactors is still, the details are a little bit up in the air about how it's going to look. And because it has to meet several goals, one of which it has to stay current as new donors come forth and new things happen. And so it's probably most popular idea right now is it'd be like a school yearbook, just republished as more information comes in, and we need to. And part of that Book of Benefactors will include the speeches that the four individuals at the opening event gave. Also, we wanted to include in that the history that I've been pulling together of the library, which to me is just, it's just the warmth in my chest about it. The number of places in this town that still exists, either as a stone marker or as an actual building where the library existed. And people didn't know about it. Murray Harris didn't know what the May Place was. What's the May Place? Anybody know what the May Place is? So the May Place was the home of the library for about 17 years.
Is that next to the Congregational Church?
It is the big building next to the Congregational Church that was built by the nephew of Isaac Waldron. And Isaac Waldron and the Reverend Benjamin Bulk were the two guys who got together in 1795 and said, this town has some pretty uninformed, select people. We need to upgrade that. And so his nephew built that. It's now owned by the Congregational Church, but it was the library for quite a while. The little gray building across the street that is next to the Chapel of the Nativity. Anybody know the origins of that building?
Well, I know it was a school building.
So that
And
was,
it was the one-room schoolhouse that my mother taught in that brought her to Barrington. And I did not know, she never told me that that was the library for summer year. So my mother was the town librarian.
so the origin though of that building was the town farm. Well, World War II. And in 1917, it was during the winter, it was put on a big sled and moved down across something called the Seaview Bridge. And I'm not sure where the Seaview Bridge is.
Doug knows.
Doug knows. There's a picture of it, and though in some old stuff. Anyhow, there's this fascination that gets me going. And anyhow, we want to put that in there too. So the Book of Benefactors is going to be
The work in
almost a
progress.
living history.
And I think at this point, I think Diane St. Jean and I are supposed to meet with the folks at Advantage Signs, staying with that. And design, and she's looked at various libraries and we've looked at other places that have,
Font sizes and.
plexiglass and how it's mounted and stuff. The other thing that we should talk about at this level is the signage that appears on other town buildings that recognizes that this building was, I want to say, the group of trustees that were responsible for getting the bond passed and seeing it through completion, and the building committee and the leadership of the Library Foundation. And we've talked about adding the leadership of the Friends group. The Friends, we're not going to have 80 names on that. And we don't really have a board. My suggestion was that we recognize the Friends and the president of the Friends, which would be Cindy. I don't know how you feel about that, Lydia and Carol, those of us who are members of the Friends. And then we talked a little bit about, should we then also add the select board put this in place. And, because, so that's yet another plaque that we would be putting, and I'm thinking we've really got that corner. A lot of the buildings in town, that kind of plaque is like the school building, it's on the exterior of the building. At the town hall, it's in the vestibule, the foyer. Although if you look at our foyer, we've pretty much covered every square inch of the foyer with either books or other announcements. It could be inside in that same corner that's lit, so we can have donor recognition and building recognition. The corner, when you come in the door and you turn right, the right,
Oh.
that's where the corner, where because we could make it about that corner. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah.
So where it is now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The new sign looks great.
Yeah, and the new sign, the letters, that was, someone commented at the select board and I'm like, oh, the letters are up. The one day I didn't come to the library.
I know.
I exactly see that, right?
Oh, when you didn't, well, you should notice it when you walk in and the lighting over it is connected to the timers. So it's, so this plaque that somebody, I think Joyce Capiella had obviously been there and said, oh, love the lighting. And I told them, no, we went that route. I'm really pleased. It looks nice because we originally thought of doing a sign like the other buildings have, but it was twice as expensive as putting letters on the building. This way, hopefully people who are looking for their healthcare provider or some care for their dog will not be coming to us. So, and I think that's it for that. So let's move on to Friends report. I have Lydia down there, but
Yes, I was gonna say, the raffle was very successful at, the craft fair. And at that point, I believe what Susan Frankel, who's the treasurer of the Friends, said that we made about $600. We had a perfect spot. Right when you walked up the stairs of the craft fair, there was the Friends selling the raffle tickets. And the raffle tickets continue to be sold here. So if you haven't gotten any, you can still purchase them until December 2nd. When we're going to draw the winners. And Susan said the last time we talked to her, it was over $700 that we've made so far. So it's ongoing. So.
and the prizes are very generous.
Exceptional.
Jaguar.
A Jaguar.
No, but there's one that's just gift certificates. The value on that is over $450.
Yeah.
So that's the one that's your Christmas shopping is done. If you get that one, you can give it.
I think every basket is over $250.
Yeah.
Value.
And then it's a grill.
Yeah.
And the
I
grill
know.
itself, and then a couple of gift certificates on that, and 2 tickets to White Christmas, that, the Gunport Playhouse production at the music hall.
At the music hall.
I have my ticket, so I don't have to buy tickets to that basket. And I just saw the cast includes Sally Struthers. But that's always, but she always does one, and she didn't do one of their productions last night.
It doesn't look up, but.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but she didn't do one of the shows, so I thought, well, she must be not doing it anymore, but she's gonna show up and that'll be fun. And a bunch of us from the Mahjong group are going, so. Anyway, so that's it for the Friends right now, I think. Landscape Committee, Lydia.
Yes, so we met about a week and a half ago. And just so you know, our landscape group does have, well, we have a couple of members right here, Carolina and Lydia's on it, and Karen. Also Richard, we have 10 members in all. And so we did as a group decide that we are going to put in a sensory garden back here in the plot that's already irrigated and ready for planting. And we figured that even without the fence, like we talked a lot about the fence, but we thought that is an area that should be planted anyways. And we thought, we talked about just putting in a regular garden with a couple of shrubs and plants, but we thought we'd really like to do a sensory garden. So it's really, looking at plants and objects that affect all the senses. And just a little aside, I went to a big Master Gardener meeting, and I went to a workshop on writing a grant for the Food Master Gardener. So I think that I can talk to you more about it, but I'm thinking about doing that along with the money that we'll get from the Friends to help put that garden in. So
You had said something about a water feature.
So I have one donated. In my case.
Oh, somebody's donated water feature. Is this one of these like electrical things?
Yeah, and there is a plug-in, there is a way, I mean, like, I have a water feature in my own garden, but. You know, you can use PVC and go underneath and, you know, you can, I'm sure we'd be clever enough to set it up. But there is, I have one that was donated.
Nice.
Yes. And then just a little aside was when I was at this Master Gardener workshop, a gentleman asked if our library would be interested in having a free seed library. So what that would be this organization would donate over 100 vegetable seeds and they would just be free for patrons.
We had a big seed library.
Okay,
I talked to the staff about it,
yeah,
because I found it odd that we didn't have one.
yeah,
And they wondered where we would store them. Like, we stored the seeds in our old card catalog. And the actual drawer one that was original to the building. We put the seeds in the pill holders. And so I know the ins and outs of how it works. We just have to figure out the logistics of where we put it and how we can implement it.
right. Or I thought it could be as simple as we put it in some kind of container and people just take them.
Oh, not a real seed library.
Right. I don't know, we could do a real estate library, but this could be just a
Seed giveaway.
seed giveaway. But we could do a seed library
Go
eventually.
in there, pick up what you want.
Yeah, I thought it would be a little draw for people to like come and get some free seeds.
Absolutely.
So we could do that to begin with, but then I'd love to talk more about this. Maybe like Bloomers said something we could do together for an actual seed library.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I worked with Elliot Garden Club that we collaborated on it. And
I think that'd be super
we
fun.
made it super fun.
Yeah.
Keep some vegetables out here.
Yeah. I thought that's one of the ideas with taste. It had some berry bushes and some vegetables. I got some really cool beans that are like curly beans. That'd be, so I think it would be, yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I think we are wrapped up. So if there would like to be a motion to adjourn the meeting at whatever time there is, 7:08.
So if you're in the meeting, it's 9.
I want to. That is good.
Second.
All in favor?
I would kick around Saturday, I did read all of.
Yeah, I'm sure you did, but sometimes it's nice to look at it.